So for the very serious topic of when things are getting worse, we have a second emotional support animal here. Things will get worse, and decisions are going to have to be made that are really serious. Even if your loved one is in their home with a caregiver, things can still happen. They can wander off. They can get hurt. It might be too much for one caregiver. Also, people with dementia in the latter stages really respond to structure. And that's when the question of a facility really needs to be asked and dealt with, because there is structure. There is a particular schedule in facilities. And a lot of times, I've heard people say, well, I feel like if I put them in a facility, I feel like I'm abandoning them. To which I always say, abandoning someone is driving them out to the Mojave Desert, throwing them out of the car and leaving them there. Abandoning someone is not putting them in a facility where they're going to have round-the-clock care, where they're not going to be able to wander off, where they're going to have structures to their days and their evenings that will be dependable and that they will get used to and learn to rely on. So, it is an important decision to make. And if you do decide to look at facilities, the other thing that you have to know is you're not going to be the one in there. I've heard people say, well, I didn't like the color of the walls, or, I didn't like the carpet. And by the way, people with Alzheimer's don't do well on hard floors, so carpeting is a good thing. You're not going to be there, and they're not going to really be dwelling on the color of the walls. The other thing that you need to know is any reputable facility is going to advise the family members to not visit for at least 2 weeks, because that person needs to acclimate themselves. They need to understand that this is their home now. And if you're constantly coming in those first 2 weeks in that transitional period, they're going to be confused. They're going to want you to take them home with you. They're not going to settle into the idea that this is now my home. The other thing that is really important is to bring things that are familiar to them. Pictures. If they have a favorite chair, bring that favorite armchair there. Their bedding, although that's not as important, because some of that has to do with some of the reasoning of bringing the bedding is that it has their familiar scent on it. But most of the time, someone with Alzheimer's has lost their sense of smell. So that's not that important. But if they have a particular pillow that they like or something like that, you want to recreate enough of their home environment that they will feel at home. And then stay away for a couple of weeks. It's really important that they melt into this new reality, this new environment, and they will develop relationships there. Sometimes they will develop romantic relationships there. That happens a lot. So you have to be willing to, again, just accept whatever is about to happen. It's very difficult having someone with any kind of dementia in your home. I know a lot of families bring a parent into their home with them. That's not always fair if there are kids there, even if there are older kids there. The focus is going to be more and more on that one individual, and you're going to see sort of negative ramifications in your own family, because no one else is going to be being paid attention to, just the person with dementia. So if it is possible and if it can be afforded, and I know that facilities are not cheap, but if it can be afforded, I think that there are definite benefits to it. there's also the fact that that medical care is, or you need to ask about this, is readily accessible. There are people there always monitoring them, monitoring their health, monitoring their welfare. You know, a lot of times it will seem like it's the end. And I've heard this many, many times, that someone has said, oh, you know what? I don't think they're going to live. My parent, my mother, my father is going to live another week. And they end up living 6 more months or a year or something like that. So you don't know. You don't know what is, you know, there can be an up and down journey on that one. But there are oftentimes moments of lucidity where the person who is ill does know that their life is ending and wants to talk about it. And if they do, let them talk about it, and let you yourself talk about it, because it's really important. It's, you know, the relationship that we have with our own mortality is a pretty intimate one and a pretty important one. So if someone says, I'm dying, don't say, oh, no, you're not. You'll be around for a long time. They're trying to have a conversation about something that's really difficult and that they're aware of. And even someone with dementia does know if they are reaching the end or if they're close to the end. They feel that. They haven't gone numb to their own emotions. So it's something that you need to participate in, even if it's uncomfortable for you, and maybe it will be, but it's uncomfortable for them too, and they're trying to reach out and talk about it. And when the end does come, or even when it's close to the end, relief is part of the experience, and it's nothing to feel guilty about. By that time, you've gone through a really long journey, and not always an easy one, and sometimes a torturous one. So grief is a lot of things. You know, you've missed this person for a long time. Hopefully you have been going through the grieving process for a long time. And there's going to be another stage of grief. And one of the things I think to be aware of is the tendency to say, oh, I know how I'm going to feel. I mean, I've been missing them all this time. I've been grieving all this time. So I know how I'm going to feel when the end comes. No, you don't. You don't. It's the same important thing to say, I don't really know what's going to happen, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to grow into this experience, because there might be a whole other, and probably will be a whole other stage of grief. And part of that is relief that it's finally over. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that you didn't care about them. It doesn't mean you didn't love them. It means that you've been going through a hard experience, and now it's over, and you can breathe a little bit more easily.